Your relationship with money matters. I'm Michelle Perkins, and this is the Money and You podcast, where I will be breaking down your relationship with money, offering tough love money tips, and a money dating plan that will focus on lifting the barriers to success to help pave the way for better money practices and increased wealth. It's time to take control to live a limit-free life. It starts today.
Hello, and welcome to the Money and You Show. I'm Michelle Perkins, your host, and I'm so excited that you're here today. We have such a great guest. Oh my gosh, who's going to get you so jazzed about travel and learning and having big dreams. So if you've never really felt like you knew how to dream big enough, I think this is going to be the show for you. And we'll touch on some money mindset around how to do that and some other things. So with that, I really want to welcome in Noah Scott, and I'm going to tell you a little about him. Noah Scott is an experience creator, author, and artist on a mission to bring purpose-driven people together and encourage humanity to live courageously in the moment, unshackled by self-doubt. Noah is currently traveling the world as a full-time nomadic entrepreneur. He hosts retreats in exotic destinations around the world and produces content while he's traveling. His podcast, The Big Possible, features interviews with doers, dreamers, and change makers discussing how to make life-changing decisions and acquire the leverage to make a massive positive impact in the world. In his 20s, however, Noah was a complete delinquent. He spent a decade chasing validation at parties and nightclubs. Eventually, he decided it was time to make a change, and he did his version of Eat, Pray, Love, walking across the 500-kilometer trail called the Tokaido in Japan. Along the journey, he discovered a passion for film. Returning to the States, he founded the Los Angeles-based production company LA Reels and quickly grew it to prominence with his team and partners. Using the revenue from the business, his team self-funded and produced Noah's directorial debut feature film, Scramble. As a visual artist, Noah has exhibited his artwork in galleries in Los Angeles and sold through his collections. His lifelong dream to run the world's coolest chain of boutique hotels where people of all walks of life can visit, forget their cares of the world, and leave recharged and ready to live their boldest, most fulfilled life ever. I would say that dream is in process. Welcome, Noah.
Thank you so much for having me on the show, Michelle. I've been looking forward to this ever since we connected. I've just been really excited to just drop the wisdom and share some inspiration with all the listeners out there. So thank you.
Yeah, I love this. And, you know, I said at the beginning, I really do find this when you ask people, you know, what their dreams are. I think it's hard for them to come up with their dreams. It's hard for them to really say what it is they want. It's so clouded by, well, I should do this, or I've been trained to do that. And so I'm really inspired by you because you've let it all go and you're just going for something really big that a lot of people would think, oh my gosh, that is just so incredible, really, that how can you even get yourself to go there and to do that? So I want to go back to your background a little bit, but I really want an answer to that question first. Like, how do you think as big as you're currently thinking?
Yeah, so a lot of it comes with the ability to let go of things that aren't right for you. I think that's the first step, right? If we can commit to saying that, asking that question, am I settling for scraps from the table in terms of what I'm dreaming or what I'm creating? And if I'm capable of doing more, what does that look like? And I don't have to necessarily have all the answers. You can copy the dreams of somebody else and fill in your own secret sauce, whatever that might look like. And so if that means I'm a business owner, figure out, okay, what industry would I want to be in? Who's doing that, like that style of living that I want right now? And how can I basically copy what they're doing and then put my own spin on it? That's one way to do it. You look at the dream I have, like there's other people that have that dream. There's other people that are doing that. The same goes with any, do I want to be a published author? Do I want to make a movie? And it's just a matter of figuring out what you could see yourself really feeling if you were to live that life. Would that give you that sense of fulfillment? Would that be something that would light you up when you do it every day? And if the answer is yes, then it's just a question of how do we remove the blocks that are holding you back from the current spot and get you started to start living that life that's really true to what you want.
Yeah. And, the way you just explained it, it sounds fairly easy and straightforward, but I know there's a lot of angst that comes up and issues with, can I really do that? And I was listening to you on another podcast, actually, and you talked a little about imposter syndrome and, the stuff that comes up around who am I to do whatever. So I wanted you to just, talk about that for a minute and let people know what they can do, because everybody's got these feelings. And I'd love to know.
Yeah, the good old imposter syndrome. Boy, I have been battling with that for the entirety of my career. And I think all of us are going to face that at some point, sometime. And there's so much truth in that phrase that you have to fake it until you make it. It's absolutely the way that the universe works. It's that we are constantly going to have this struggle of doubt within our own head, waiting for whatever the process of us reaching for our dreams to start to manifest, right? So results are going to come a little bit later than belief. That's just how it works. You have to believe it first. You have to assume the identity and say, this is the dream that I'm going to have. Of course, at the beginning, I am a beginner. You cannot change that fact. But the more you start showing up every day, you start swinging the bat, you get skills, you get experience, you're going to, before you know it, now become an expert in whatever thing that you at the beginning felt you were an imposter. But the only way to get that mastery is to show up every single day, get familiar with it. And the more familiar you become, the more confident you become. And that virtuous cycle starts to feed itself. And then before you know it, everything gets easier.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. And so when you first made the transition, because we have people listening on the show who, would really love to make a work transition, and get caught up in the, how and what and all the stuff. So did you have a particular moment of clarity around this? You did go on your walk, and so maybe that's when you had it, or did it come before that?
There's been several moments of trying to letting go of the current spot, taking a leap. And I think the most recent is the most powerful, right? Because I've had success running my own production company. Many years we had that. We produced a feature film, and then I got to that pinnacle where I was like, what do I do next? What do I do after this? And to be honest, I got scared, right? I got afraid of that entrepreneurial commitment, the roller coaster of the ups and downs, the feasts and famines, and also just having to eat the responsibility of a lot of the bad decisions we made in terms of, all right, let's make a feature film while we're still running the business. That was a big expense. And so I was exhausted. I was, afraid of the next steps. And so ended up letting go of that business. And I went the path of finding a full-time job. And I wanted to grow in the marketing space because I realized that there was still a lot to learn, still a lot to grow. So I found a job at a marketing agency, which was fantastic for me at that time. It really helped me level up a lot, button up a lot of processes, button up a lot of the tactics around marketing. And I was able to refine a lot of the thinking that I had. So there are times when jumping in as an employee are extremely beneficial because you're able to gain the mentorship of your boss. And so my boss was a legend in the marketing space. I was able to learn a ton from him. But what happened, it was kind of a double-edged sword. I also got very complacent. I also sort of hit a ceiling. I didn't want the extra responsibility. I didn't want to go through management. I'm like, I want to do my own thing. I want to get out and be an entrepreneur again. But I also developed a bunch of like a security blanket complex here where I'm like, afraid to take risks. My testosterone was going down because it was like the same 9 to 5 every day. And even though you look back and I'm like, the risk is really where all the growth really is. If you can learn to take that risk and just understand that Sure, you might have to bleed a little bit. You might have to get beat up a little bit. But when you whatever limit that you think that you're facing, that's only 10% of what your actual limit really is. And so the thing that you're afraid of, whether that's running out of money, whether that's like getting homeless, whether that's having your parents disown you because you took the leap, all of that is just a small 10% of what you're actually capable of. And it's all just created as an illusion. And your brain is going to come up with all these reasons why. But if you actually take the leap, you'll find that you have so much more in your reserve than you think you're capable of. And when you start to take that leap, people are going to show up. They're going to recognize that you're putting forth your best effort. And they're going to say, how can I support you in this? And so let's look at my journey here. You know, job was going out. I'm like bashing my head against the wall, trying to figure out what the next entrepreneurial thing is going to be. I invested a bunch of money to build a coaching business. I published a book, and I realized that this wasn't the path for me. Okay, no problem, right? I was doing this all under the safety of still having a job. So I was experimenting while I had the job. But then eventually I got to the point where I found this idea for the retreat business. And kind of like, it was like I was already on my way out of the job. And what happened is, you know, I decided, hey, I found something I want to go all in on. I'm going to take that risk. And so quit the job in January, held my first retreat. We sold out in Mexico. It was absolutely phenomenal, blown away by the feedback. And the way this concept really is basically would bring 12 people together. We have speakers, we go to an exotic destination, and it's all about for those 3 to 4 days that we're together, it's about how the community can help each other reach for their big dreams. And this all came because I'm sitting here looking at this coaching business that I built. I had my first few clients, and it was absolutely not for me. I was ending the calls completely drained, completely realizing that there are people that are better suited for this than me. I'm not a coach. I like to entertain. I like to host. I like to bring people together. That's my strong point. I need to be doing more of that. And you look back, so I'm connecting the dots with my coach, and I'm sitting here like, bro, it just doesn't feel right. I put all this effort into building this. We had ads and sales funnels. We had like all this marketing around it, the book and everything. And he looks at me, he's like, all right, it's time to put the brakes on this. You know what I see you doing? I see you doing this thing where you're hosting retreats around the world. And you're wearing this like white shirt. There's like oak trees behind you. And like people come and spend a bunch of money to have this experience. And that was the signal, because this is all stuff I've been writing in my vision for the last 10 years. I just didn't think I was ready for it. And I've been doing all this other stuff as sort of that delay or saying, okay, I'm going to keep myself busy doing all the things that are going to get me ready for this one thing that I really want to do. And he looks at me and he says, you know what? You're ready. It's time to take the leap. And so that's, we didn't look back after that. We booked a villa, started messaging people. Once we got our first few sales in, we knew this is it. There's a signal here that this is what my job is supposed to be. And based on the feedback, based on how everything flew on that first event, it was very clear that we're onto something. And so here we are, we're just weeks away from hosting our second event in Morocco. So excited for that one. Actually, that was a bigger challenge to find people, but you know, if this goes out, we still might have a couple seats. So if someone is interested, we can talk about that later. But yeah, I think that's short and long answer for a short question there.
Yeah, how exciting. And yeah, there's so much there. I mean, it's fantastic what you're saying. It sounds like you had a great coach. You know, that's, and I do think there's a lot to sort of circling around your big goal, you know, doing a lot of things to either get ready for it, or maybe they're sort of adjacent, but they're not quite doing it. And that just feels more comfortable, I think, and really going for it. It could be success, fears of success, fears of failure. It could be anything, but doing it is everything. And so just the fact that you did it at all, does that increase your confidence to the point where, it gives you enough momentum?
Momentum's a really brilliant word. I'm so glad you brought that up, because if you're talking about getting the clarity around whether your idea is going to work or not, no better feedback is possible other than momentum. Yeah. You can sit there and dream about it, write all the plans that you want, but until you actually take those first steps and put something out into the world, you'll have no idea whether it's right or wrong. And it's okay to be wrong at the beginning. That's totally fine. It's that feedback from every time you make a step, you make an iteration, you get a little momentum, that flywheel starts spinning, and something is going to happen as that flywheel starts spinning. People are going to say, oh, wait, I see where you're going. I like that direction, but what if you made this tweak or this tweak or this tweak? And there's never a straight line to success, but you're never going to get anywhere staying right where you are.
Yeah. So fantastic. So this is kind of a hypothetical, because it sounds like your first one went beautifully, but if it hadn't, because I think a lot of people put something out there and, it kind of crashes. So, and sometimes people just stop based on that, that's their data, and then they're done. So what would you have to say about that? I mean, if it hadn't gone as well as you hoped, what would you have done?
Well, I'm going to be, let's just peel the Band-Aid off here. We're gearing up for Morocco, and I'm going to lose a boatload of money on this. I lost money on Mexico. I'm going to lose money on this. And it's a real test. It's a real challenge to see how much gas you have in the tank, and how resourceful you're going to be. It's going to be hard. You're not going to get it right the first time. There's going to be mistakes. And if you can approach it with the beginner's mindset and say, wait a second, how beautiful is this opportunity for me to learn? I look at the lessons learned from choosing Morocco for my second. Super ambitious to do a destination that, one, is super far away. Two, there's a freaking vaccine mandate. So it's like we've had a lot of people unfortunately drop out because they're just not vaccinated. And so all of these challenges that pop up, we're faced with the question, do we cancel? Do we keep going? And of course we're going to keep going, because there's just enough momentum, and there's enough brilliance in the people that are showing up, and excitement, that it's like, okay, even if we have to dial it down, that's great. We'll dial it down. We'll have a smaller, more contained experience. And that momentum is going to be able to carry us through to the next event. And that's really what it's about. So what can you do your first time, and how can you use that as your prototype, and then refine what you get out of that? So look at the first one as your sort of test run. Try to do it as small as possible so that you lose the minimum amount of capital up at the beginning. Use that really as your beta. As long as you have enough data that you can generate a little bit of sales on that, that's fine. Any new business, you're going to have startup costs. Your first event, your first book, your first YouTube channel, they're all going to be terrible at the beginning. That's the truth. Just push through and understand that the first one is your chance to get as much qualitative feedback as you possibly can. Bring experts in who can give you some notes after the event. Write a survey. Do as much due diligence as you can to have a post-event survey and a pre-event survey. What did you come into the event expecting? What did you come out of the event with? That data will really point you in the direction of how to make your next event better. It'll also give you enough insight into what people really want. Maybe your product's not the right product, but by doing that, you'll get some clues and insights into how to adjust your product, and having the opportunity to then put that in front of people and see the way they interact with it, that's where the real gold is. And so don't let the first iteration of your dream get you discouraged. It's absolutely there so that you can get feedback, so that you can continuously pivot and iterate. That's where the fun begins. That is your opportunity to now create something, a V2 that the world is going to be really excited to receive.
Oh, I love that. That's such a positive way of looking at it, and really the only way to look at it if you want to keep going. So yeah, that was really well said. Thank you so much. And thanks for being vulnerable about that, because
yeah,
I don't think everybody's always honest about what's going on in their businesses, and people have, there's more under the surface than people see. And there's a lot of trial and error, and there's a lot of losing money on things. And so I don't think people, always realize that. And so let's just talk about money for a minute. How did you prepare for this, or did you just go for it? I mean, people do both, and they both work.
Yeah. Well, I'm notorious for just jumping before I'm ready. I've always done that. Like, you look back at my Japan trip, I was like, I'm gonna go to Japan, and I had like a little bit of savings. I got in a motorcycle accident and had to throw all of my money towards hospital bills. So I landed in Japan, and like, I was waiting for a check to come in from some modeling job that I did, and I had like $15 when I got to Kyoto. It was ridiculous. And like, I'm just sitting here thinking, I'm gonna walk into these little, I didn't even have a tent or anything. I'm like, I'm gonna walk into this little town in the countryside because I'm tall and I speak Japanese. Everyone's gonna just be like, oh, come stay at my house. Sadly, it was not quite that easy. But what I've learned throughout the years is that, yes, you can fly by the seat of your pants, and more often than not, you'll be fine. Mm-hmm. You get beat around a little bit, but I've had to throughout my experience working in the marketing agency, and B, running the company, I've learned to put some barriers up so that I don't fall on my face every single time I try to do something. And so there's a lot of preparation that has to go into this. What I like to do is run a couple exercises that are basically just going to give you an idea of how much runway you're going to need and what to do in the event that something falls apart. So one is you run a series of basically a best case, middle case, absolute worst case, everything falls apart, crashes and burns scenarios. And it's very stoic, right? You think about all the worst things that can happen, but you don't worry about what the possible things are going to be. It's simply a matter of, let's address all of the elephants in the room. Let's do a thought experiment. What are the first order consequences? What are the second order consequences? If I do this, what does that look like from a cash flow perspective? What does that look like from a happiness perspective? And just really write all of those down. Best case scenario. All right, suppose miracles show up and I'm just floating on cloud 9. I've got some angel investor that pops in and he's like, here we go. Let's just go. What does the best case scenario look like? Write all that down. Then take your sort of most likely scenario. This is really, okay, if I'm being just conservative, this is likely to happen. And then write out all of your worst case scenarios. So let's say that for my event, right? I rent the big villa, I get this other thing, I overspend, nobody shows up. Or they show up and somebody gets in a car accident and it's just terrible. Maybe the speakers are drunk, or like they say some really terrible things, or like maybe I don't know, I do something embarrassing and somebody deletes all the footage, right? So all the things that can possibly go wrong. And then you just think like, okay, if all that happens, what is that going to cost me? How long do I have to wait until I can recoup my investment? And in my case, I had a little bit of savings, and I'm like, okay, this is good enough. I've got the savings that I can run with this. If I have worst case scenario, I can A, get a loan, B, I can keep everything on my credit cards. I've got credit cards, and as long as I can pull out by this point, then we're good. And so I know what my runway is. I know what my sort of eject point is, when you just have to say enough is enough. I can bleed up until this much. I can borrow up until this much. And then if I don't see a path towards revenue, what's your eject point? And you can pivot. There's ways to pivot. Like I'm looking at additional ways to bring in some cash. I just had someone come up to me and I'm actually talking about planning somebody else's event. So they're, corporate events. They're coming in and they're saying, hey, bro, we can pay you, a lot of money for doing this. And I'm like, wait a second. This is like another business model that I didn't even consider when I was starting to this, that now I have an option to, while I'm growing my retreats, growing my marketing, I can also now offer this service to other people. And now I have an extra revenue stream. So as you start going deeper down the rabbit hole, you can leave a little buffer room for additional revenue streams that are going to pop up as you go further down the path. So I hope that helped in terms of what you need to prepare in terms of jumping into your big idea.
Yeah, I love it. I love the balance between, dreaming, which it is a big dream with a lot of unknowns, but at the same time, injecting some reality frameworks and some things that just help you to stay, somewhat grounded in how you develop this, which I think that balance is really important. So yeah, that's a great framework, actually.
Yeah, and I definitely think that we all do have backup plans. We all have people that are going to support us. So before you start your idea, ask somebody for help. There are people out there that are going to be able to lend you that support, whether that is a bank, whether that's it's a friend that has some capital if you need capital, whether that's like just a person that's really dialed into your ideal customer base. So think about all those things that you're going to need as your cushion, as your sort of, if you do crash and burn, what is your eject safety mechanism? What's that cushion at the bottom that's going to save you from dying? And so that you're not going to be like, oh, this sucks, I'm never going to reach for my dream again. Set that up in place before you take the leap. That's really all you have to do. It's a lot easier going into a scary thing, knowing that you have your bases covered in the event that everything goes south, everything crashes and burns. You're going to be fine.
Yeah. I love this. And the other thing that you said a little earlier, well, you've said two things now that I wanted to comment on. One was kind of going back and forth between being an entrepreneur and being, part of an organization really as an employee. And I think it's so important for people. We make this weird distinction, like I'm an entrepreneur and I'm a professional who works for other people. And people tend to not feel like you can go back and forth like that. So I think that's really a great point that you brought up too, because people do have the freedom to do it. And it doesn't, people make it mean something that it doesn't necessarily need to mean when you move into, for example, learning the skills at the agency. It wasn't forever. You weren't giving up on entrepreneurship. You went back to it. And so I just kind of love that people can have the freedom to be both at different times.
And there's so many amazing companies and jobs that you, as an entrepreneur, you have to build everything on your own. It's kind of, you're getting the short end of the stick sometimes. It's not easy. It's not for everybody. And you have about a 3-year ramp up in every business. If you start something new, it's about 3 years until you actually have things really dialed in. You have processes going. You look back at everything that I do, everything I look at all my friends do. That's just across the board. This is my mentor, Eric Sue, is always talking about that. That's really the mark when things really start to flow. And so if you don't have the luxury of if you just don't want to invest 3 years before things work, you could start at a company and you have a ton of resources, a ton of leverage. And if you just hustle within the company, you do that entrepreneur style of growth, they're going to open doors for you. They're going to provide resources for you. And, I look at some of my buddies at like Coinbase, for example, or, bigger like Glassdoor. They have so many perks being at a great company. They can take big vacations. They have great salary. They can do things on the side. And so I wouldn't knock the employee life as something that's bad. It's just, you just need to You just need to set yourself up in a company that can support your dreams.
Yeah, beautiful. And the other thing, oh no, I'm going to forget the other thing. There was something that you said that I wanted to really comment on, but it'll come back to me, I hope. So let's just talk for a minute, because it seems like, we talk a lot about money mindset. So seems like you have a really good relationship with money. It seems like you have just an outlook on it. And I don't know if that was always there or if you've developed that, but can you just comment briefly on how your money relationship is, and has that evolved, or, is it just?
It's funny. Like, I've never really been a good at managing money. So I've had business partners who are, I'm really more of a conceptual thing. I have a big idea and I'm like, let's go. And then it's funny, I had my old boss used to have this phrase that he would say all the time: scared money don't make money. And it's it's just so fitting. Sometimes you have to take some risks, you have to make some investments. That being said, you have to be smart too. So for me, I'm frugal. I'm crazy frugal when it comes to living in a day-to-day. I spend like whatever I want when it comes to the business. If it's going to grow, if it's an investment, I try not to be afraid of that investment. I try instead to think of money as a tool, right? It's still like, I still have abundance and I still have mindset issues around like what I'm worth, what I'm capable of. And I get trigger shy when I'm sending, like, I'm terrible when it comes to like negotiating things. I'm like too nice when it comes to making sales calls. I'm too nice. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll give you a discount. So I find that, that relationship with money I'm terrible. But where I'm good at is cutting expense and having a little bit of discipline in terms of, I don't need to stay at fancy places when I travel. I don't need to eat fancy restaurants. And it was really hard. Like, I was like traveling with other people, and sometimes they have this, like, they're used to going out and spending money at like 30, even just like $30 a dinner every single day. That starts to add up. And so I prefer being very frugal with my day-to-day, and then splurging on the things that are important to me in terms of what are aligned with the dreams. So is this related to my business? If I have to spend $50 for a marketing tool that's going to save me 30 hours a week, I'm not going to stop to think about that. I'm just going to go and make that purchase. And so if it's tied to your dream, if it's tied to your purpose, don't skimp. Don't be afraid of that. Invest. If it's tied to just like your comfort and convenience and just like image, like a t-shirt or something like that, you don't need to waste your money on that. Focus on the stuff that's important. That's really where my relationship with money is. And I think, I've had to let go of a lot of pretentiousness and just focus on what's important.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. And you're so conscious of it. I mean, you so easily could answer that question. So you've given it thought, which I think is a huge part of the process, just to actually give it some thought and be aware of I don't think there's a right or wrong, but I think it's important to have an awareness of, the choices you're making and the decisions you're making around money. So yeah, very cool. So tell us a little about the retreats and who are you trying to bring together?
Yeah, wonderful question, because that's really the heart and soul of it, right? It's about the community. And we started this really as an opportunity for three things to happen. One, for the people that are coming to be in a position, a container in which they have the permission to dream big, to let go of the grind wherever they're at in their current life, to shake the routine up a little bit and be wowed by an epic adventure, something that gives them permission to think, what am I really capable of? What really makes me happy? And so the idea of a travel to another destination, Mexico, Morocco, Greece, that gives that element. The next element is about the people that you're going to be around. When we build our relationships in life, so often we rely on proximity. We rely on similar interests, or just, the convenience of our friends. We either make friends because they work with us, or they live next to us, or somebody just introduced us. We don't actually take a lot of intention when we're creating the community that we're around. And so the retreats are really designed to filter out the community that shows up based on similar shared values and goals. So we bring entrepreneurs, makers, doers, people that are excited about creating something and want to challenge themselves to live to a bigger purpose. And now you're at this event in paradise, some wild, cool destination, surrounded by other like-minded people who are there, aligned with your values. They're showing up with that intention to connect with other people, be vulnerable, learn, grow, and move their vision forward, while helping everyone else move their other respective visions forward. And so that's really the double-edged sword of what this is about. And then when you add that final piece, the final piece is, okay, now what's your big possible, right? It's about zeroing in, coming with the idea that as you show up to this event, you're enabling yourself to let go of whatever limitations you're currently facing. You have that intention of, during this time that I'm here at this retreat, what can I do this year to make this year the biggest, most fulfilling year of my life? And you ask that question to whatever, you set that intention, and then you use the speakers, you use the community, all of that as the leverage to help you build a roadmap to get to that point. If you set the biggest dream possible, you're going to need help to get there. Whatever dream that we set, there's always going to be, if we set it a little harder than we are capable of doing just on our own, but then if you rely on the support from a community, you're going to be able to actually achieve it, rather than having it be something that just like is forever out of reach. So that's kind of the events in a nutshell. The types of people that show up, we have really three types. There's entrepreneurs and like founders, people that are already doing well over 7 figures. So they're either running marketing agencies, they're running startups, or they're in their entertainment space. And we also have a section of people that are employed at a great job, but they're also they don't have any plans to leave that job, but they're looking for some fun creative outlets, or just building their social network, and an opportunity to intentionally create community outside of what they already know. And then we have the final group, which are the solo practitioners, the startup founders, early stage startup founders, the creatives. So we have like artists and music producers, people that are looking for that roadmap to either scale their business, build a deeper network of leads and pipeline, gain the knowledge that they need to really thrive in their business, and also, again, just walk out of there with a supportive community. So the big intention really is about business success, and zeroing in on your dream. There's a lot of other components around wellness, personal growth, friendship, community, connection, but at the heart and soul, it's about how do you tap into your big professional goal, and then find the community that can support you, and you can support them.
It sounds amazing. And I know that community is the best thing ever. I mean, when you find new people in your world that, you're interested in, and they're interested in what you're doing, and everybody support it, there's nothing like that. I mean, it's really the fuel for your business in a major way. And I just love also the fact that you're somewhere else. You're totally out of your environment, where your brain will just think totally differently. So yeah, super fantastic. And well, we just zoomed through this. I mean, I can't believe how fast it went, actually. I have like 1,000 more questions, but do you want to tell people how they can connect with you, and anything else that you have going on that they might be able to
Ooh, yes. So I'm so excited. We actually have a world tour happening. We're about to kick this off. So the plans are in motion theoretically, we're going to have our first inaugural Big Possible World Tour, which is basically like a series of happy hours and firesides that I'm going to do while I'm traveling all over the world. And then eventually I've actually got people that are going to be doing different chapters. So there's a Big Possible retreats, which if you want that premium, incredible experience at a luxury villa with 4 days of speakers, all the jazz, you could RSVP for one of those. Just send me an email. I'll make sure I get you a nice fat discount, because like I said, I'm too nice. So if I'm not gonna, yeah. So send me a message there and we'll get you in for the big retreats. But other than that, we've also have these great happy hours that are going to be happening around the world. So LA theoretically is happening this week. Then we've got Morocco, Budapest, Krakow. That's where I'm going to be for the next 4 months. I'm not sure after that, but we'll get that spinning. And so if you want to be involved with that, definitely, if you're in one of those cities, pop in, just check out thebigpossible.com/world tour, and we'll have all the info there. And then eventually we'll have some like online stuff. But yeah, thebigpossible.com, that's where everything's at. You can check out the podcast. You can find me there. Send me an email for anything. And then, yeah, we also have the retreats and the world tour.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. And thank you for bringing up your podcast, because people can get to know you better and listen to that as well. What's the name of the podcast?
The Big Possible.
Possible. Okay, perfect. Yeah, remember one thing, a big possible. I love that. So, well, Noah, thank you so much for being here. Your energy is amazing. I would imagine you bring that same energy to your retreats and to everything you do. And that alone makes it, I think, worth whatever you're asking people to pay for this. So I really appreciate you being here and talking to us. I'm inspired. I feel more possibility just from having you here in the space. So really appreciate it, and good luck with everything. I'll be following along and getting on all the lists. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Michelle.
Okay, well, listeners, thank you so much. Thank you for being here. We love having you listening to the show. We broadcast from ubngo.com, and you'll find us on all the podcast platforms and Limit Free Life YouTube channel. And so not hard to find. Please keep tuning in, subscribe, leave a review, get in touch with me if you have any specific questions at Michelle@limitfreelife.com, and we will see you next week.